The message arrived during my advanced business law final exam. My phone buzzed quietly on my desk, and Professor Matthews glanced at me with disapproval. I quickly flipped it face down, focusing on the last few questions about property law and inheritance rights. Ironically fitting, considering what I was about to discover. An hour later, walking across Stanford's sun-drenched campus, I finally checked my messages. Mom, big changes coming. We're selling the house while you're away. Your room's already empty. Donated everything to charity. Focus on your studies. Sister Kate, finally getting rid of your superhero posters. Dad, it's for the best, son. Time to grow up. I stopped walking, other students streaming around me like a river around a boulder. The familiar weight of my grandfather's watch pressed against my wrist, its gentle ticking a reminder of his last words to me. Trust your instincts, Alex. And remember, timing is everything. My phone buzzed again. More messages flooded in. Kate, Mom's already talking to realtors. That dump will finally be gone. Mom, the charity truck just left. Your room looks so much better empty. Dad, we'll put the money toward Kate's wedding. You understand. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, tempted to reveal what they didn't know. Instead, I opened my email and clicked on a message from 3 weeks ago. Congratulations, Mr. Alexander Mitchell. Your offer on 1447 Maple Grove Road has been accepted. Closing is scheduled for. I smiled, remembering grandfather's lessons about patience and strategy. He'd built his real estate empire from nothing, teaching me everything while my parents and sister focused on appearances and quick profits. Never show your hand too early, he'd say during our chess games. Let them think they're winning until the very end. Opening my banking app, I confirmed the property transfer had been completed last week. The house, my childhood home, was legally mine, purchased through a holding company grandfather had helped me set up before he passed away last year. The irony of my parents trying to sell a house they no longer owned would have made him laugh. My phone rang. Kate, hey loser, she chirped. Mom's showing the house to agents tomorrow. We're thinking of using that tacky room of yours as a selling point. Huge potential for renovation. Want me to save any of your stuff? Or should we just trash everything? I kept my voice neutral. Interesting timing. I have a flight home tomorrow anyway. Business law final just finished. Oh God, you're not going to try to stop this, are you? Face it, Alex. That house is worth way more than your sentimental garbage. My wedding venue alone costs. See you tomorrow, Kate. I hung up, already pulling up my flight confirmation. Originally booked for next week, but grandfather always said to have backup plans. In my dorm room, I packed quickly while making calls. First, to Mr. Harrison, grandfather's longtime lawyer. Ah, young Mr. Mitchell. I was expecting your call. Your parents have indeed contacted several real estate agents. Time to execute Protocol A. Indeed, the property transfer documents are ready. Would you like me to attend tomorrow's discussion? Not yet. Let's see how they react first. Next, I called Mrs. Peterson, our elderly neighbor who'd lived next door for 40 years. She'd been my confidant since I was 5, sneaking me cookies when my parents were fighting. Alex, dear, your mother's been quite busy today. 3 different real estate agents, and that awful charity truck. I tried to stop them, but it's okay. Mrs. Peterson, did you get everything? Yes, dear. Every box they marked for donation is safe in my garage, including your grandfather's chess set and those journals. I breathed easier. Thank you. I'll be home tomorrow. Good. And Alex, your grandfather would be proud. He always said you were the only one who truly understood value. Last call, Professor Matthews. Sir? About that property law hypothetical you mentioned. Ah, yes. Quite relevant to your situation, isn't it? Remember what we discussed about possession versus ownership, and about the legal implications of attempting to sell property you don't own. Precisely. Good luck, Mr. Mitchell. Do keep me informed. This could make an excellent case study. On the flight home, I reviewed the documents on my laptop. Property deeds, transfer records, bank statements, everything perfectly legal, perfectly timed. Grandfather had taught me well. The house at 1447 Maple Grove Road wasn't just a building. It was where grandfather had started his business, working from the basement office while building his empire, where he'd taught me about investment, strategy, and patience while my parents focused on quick profits and status symbols. They'd never understood why he'd spent so much time with me. Their disappointment, who preferred books and chess to parties and social climbing. They didn't know about our real lessons, or about the trust he'd set up for me, carefully structured to mature when I turned 21, which had happened last month. Landing at 8 p.m., I took a taxi home, watching familiar streets roll by. The house looked different now, knowing it was mine. Lights blazed inside, unusual for this time of night. I found them in the living room. Mom, Dad, Kate, and her fiancé Todd, surrounded by real estate brochures. Alex, Mom's surprise wasn't entirely pleasant. We weren't expecting you until next week. Clearly, I noted the for sale signs leaning against the wall, the staged furniture already replacing our familiar pieces. Now don't start, Dad warned. This decision is final. The house is too valuable to keep as a family home. Kate's wedding costs a fortune, Kate interrupted, and my venue is non-refundable. Besides, your room was wasted space anyway. I set my bag down, taking in the changes. The family photos were gone, replaced by generic art. The worn leather armchair where grandfather taught me chess disappeared. Even the ancient grandfather clock he'd restored was missing. Looking for something? Mom asked sweetly. The donations have already been collected. It's for the best, really. Time to let go of the past. I checked my watch. Grandfather's watch. 8:47 p.m. Perfect timing. Actually, I said carefully, we should discuss the sale. There might be a small problem. What problem? Todd spoke up, arm around Kate. My cousin's a real estate agent. He's already got buyers interested. The problem, I said, pulling out my phone, is that you can't sell a house you don't own. Silence. Don't be ridiculous. Mom scoffed. This house has been in our family for, exactly, in our family, specifically in grandfather's name. And when he passed away, it transferred to your father, Kate snapped. We all know that. Actually, I opened the property records on my phone. It didn't. Grandfather put it in a trust that matured when I turned 21. More silence. That's impossible. Dad started. The trust transferred ownership to my holding company, Mitchell Enterprises, 3 weeks ago. The sale was completed last week. I turned to Todd. Your cousin might want to check property records before listing houses for sale. The room exploded. You can't do this. That's our house. My wedding venue. I held up my hand. The house is mine, legally and fully. If you'd like to verify, Mr. Harrison is available for a meeting tomorrow. Harrison. Mom's face went pale. Your grandfather's lawyer. The same. Now about my belongings. We had every right, Kate began, to dispose of someone else's property without permission. Interesting legal theory. Professor Matthews would love to discuss that. Dad stepped forward. Now listen here. No, you listen. My voice stayed calm, just as grandfather had taught me. This house has been in our family for 3 generations. Grandfather built his company from that basement office. He restored every inch of this place himself, and you were going to sell it for a wedding venue. The market value, Todd started, is irrelevant. Some things are worth more than money. Grandfather understood that. That's why he made sure the house would be protected. Mom sank into a chair. You planned this. All those hours with him, the business lessons. He taught me what mattered. While you were chasing status and quick profits, he showed me how to build something lasting. Kate's face turned ugly. You spoiled little. Careful, I interrupted. Tenants should be polite to their landlord. Tenants. Dad exploded. Of course. I'm not heartless. You can stay sen with a proper lease agreement. Market rate rent. Naturally. Mr. Harrison will have the paperwork tomorrow. This is outrageous. We're your family. Yes, you are. Family who just tried to sell my home and donate my belongings without permission. Family who mocked my connection with grandfather. Family who never understood what he was building, or why he chose me to continue it. I picked up one of the real estate brochures, examining their ambitious asking price. The rent will be reasonable. Unless you prefer to move out. I hear Kate's wedding venue has guest accommodations. You wouldn't dare, Kate whispered. I smiled, hearing grandfather's voice. In business and in life, always leave them a choice. Just make sure you control what those choices are. The lease terms are simple. Respect the property, maintain it properly, and pay on time. Break those terms and yes, you'll need those guest accommodations. Pulling out my keys, including the new ones I'd had made last week, I headed for the stairs. Where are you going? Mom demanded. To my room. Mrs. Peterson has my belongings. I'll be moving them back in tonight. Mrs. Peterson, that interfering old valued neighbor and family friend, I corrected, who, unlike some people, understands loyalty and respect. At the top of the stairs, I turned back. The lease agreements will be ready at 10 a.m. Mr. Harrison's office. Don't be late. In my empty room, I heard them arguing downstairs. Kate's shrill accusations, Mom's tears, Dad's angry denials. But above it all, I heard grandfather's laugh. Remembered his pride when I mastered a particularly complex business strategy. The best revenge, he told me, is success achieved ethically. Never be cruel, never be unfair, just be smarter, work harder, and wait for the right moment. My phone buzzed. Mrs. Peterson, ready to bring your things back? Yes, I replied. And Mrs. Peterson, thank you for believing in me. Your grandfather knew what he was doing, dear. He'd be so proud today. Looking out my window at the familiar street, I smiled. The house would stay in the family, preserved and protected. The basement office where grandfather started his empire would soon house my own business ventures. And my family, they'd learn the same lesson grandfather taught me years ago. True value isn't in quick profits or social status. It's in building something lasting, something worthy of the next generation. The grandfather clock would be back in the hall tomorrow, its steady ticking a reminder that timing indeed is everything. The next morning, I woke up in my restored bedroom. Grandfather's chest set back on its table by the window. Mrs. Peterson and I had worked until midnight, returning everything to its proper place. The family photos, the worn leather armchair, even my tacky superhero posters, all back where they belonged. My phone showed 15 missed calls and 37 text messages. Kate, you can't do this to your own sister. Mom, we need to talk before the meeting. Dad, be reasonable, son. We can work something out. Todd, my cousin, already listed the property. I ignored them all and headed downstairs. The house was quiet. Everyone had retreated to their rooms after last night's confrontation. In the kitchen, I found a fresh pot of coffee and a note from Mrs. 1 month into the new arrangement, the tension in the house was thick enough to cut with a knife. My family had adopted different strategies for dealing with their new reality. Mom pretended everything was normal, Dad buried himself in work, and Kate had turned passive aggression into an art form. The first rent payment arrived exactly on time, accompanied by a note from Kate. Hope you enjoy profiting from your family's misery. Wedding planning is so stressful without having to worry about rent. I was in grandfather's office, my office now, when Mom knocked tentatively on the door. The sink is leaking upstairs, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. I suppose we should call a plumber? Check the lease agreement, I replied, not looking up from grandfather's journals. Basic maintenance is covered by the landlord. It feels ridiculous asking my own son for household repairs. I finally looked up, more ridiculous than trying to sell his home without permission. She flinched. We were thinking of the family's best interests. No, Mom, you were thinking of Kate's wedding. There's a difference. Later that day, as the plumber worked upstairs, I discovered something interesting in grandfather's oldest journal. A detailed account of how he'd acquired the house, complete with photos of its original condition. Bought for a song, he'd written. Everyone else saw a rundown property. I saw a foundation for something greater. The best investments aren't always obvious to others. The doorbell rang. Mrs. Peterson with her weekly cookie delivery. She'd appointed herself unofficial mediator in our family drama. Kate's car is packed, she reported, setting down the cookies. I think she's moving out. Right on cue, Kate stormed in. I'm done. I'm staying with Todd until the wedding. This hostile environment is affecting my mental health. The lease requires 30 days notice, I reminded her calmly. I'm not breaking the lease, she snapped. I'm just temporarily relocating. My rent portion will still be paid. Of course, though you might want to read Section 12B about subletting restrictions. She threw up her hands. You're impossible, you've turned into a mini version of grandfather, with all his rules and conditions. Thank you, it wasn't a compliment. And yet, I opened grandfather's journal to a marked page. Come here, look at this. Curiosity overcame anger, and she peered at the old photographs. Is that the house? In 1975, when everyone else thought it was worthless. Mom appeared in the doorway. I remember that. Your grandfather worked every weekend fixing it up. Your father thought he was crazy. He saw potential, I said. Just like he saw potential in me, while you all saw disappointment. Kate sat down, unexpectedly quiet. He taught you everything, didn't he? All those hours we thought you were just playing chess. He taught me about legacy, about building something that lasts. While you were focused on social status and quick profits, he showed me the value of patience and long-term vision. By turning you into a landlord, the bitterness was back in her voice. By teaching me to protect what matters. This house isn't just property, Kate. It's where our family's story began. Where grandfather built his company from nothing. Where dad proposed to mom in the garden. Where you took your first steps. Mom wiped her eyes. The garden, it needs work. The roses are suffering. I know, I've hired a landscaper. Grandfather's original plans for the garden were in his files. He planned everything, didn't he? Kate said softly. Down to the last detail, including who would understand its true value. I showed them another journal entry. Alex asks the right questions. Not what's it worth, but why does it matter? The others see dollar signs. He sees stories, memories, possibilities. Mom touched the page gently. We never really knew him, did we? Not like you did. You never tried. You were too busy looking forward to look around. Kate stood abruptly. I need to think about everything. Take your time. Your room will be here. It's a family home after all. After they left, Mrs. Peterson smiled. Progress. Maybe, though I suspect Kate's still moving to Todd's. Give them time. Your grandfather always said understanding comes to different people at different speeds. That evening Dad came to the office. He stood awkwardly, looking at the familiar desk where his father had worked for decades. I never understood him, he admitted. Or you. Always thought business was about profit margins and networking. It's about building something meaningful, I said. Something that lasts. Like this house. Like this house. He nodded slowly. The lease, it's fair. More than fair, actually. Your grandfather would have approved. I know. He helped me draft the terms before he died. Dad's head snapped up. He knew, all along. He knew everything, Dad, including how you'd react to the sale being blocked. And still he chose to protect his legacy. Through someone who understood its value. Dad turned to leave, then paused. The basement needs waterproofing. I'll submit a maintenance request. Properly this time. Progress indeed. That night, I added my own entry to grandfather's journal. The house is more than walls and windows. It's a teacher, showing each family member what they need to learn. Mom's remembering the garden where she fell in love. Dad's recognizing the value of preservation. Even Kate, maybe she'll understand eventually that some things are worth more than a perfect wedding venue. My phone buzzed. Kate left some boxes in my room. Don't touch them. I'll be back for them, eventually. Translation. She's keeping her room, just in case. Another text from Mom. Found your grandfather's old rose pruning shears. Remember when he taught you to deadhead the flowers? And finally Dad. Maintenance request submitted through proper channels. Also found some old building plans in my files. Might be useful for future renovations. I smiled, hearing grandfather's voice. Sometimes the best investment returns aren't measured in dollars. Looking around the office where it all began, I understood completely. This wasn't just about keeping a house. It was about preserving a foundation, not just of bricks and mortar, but of memories, lessons, and possibilities. The rent checks would keep coming. The maintenance requests would be filed, and slowly perhaps, my family would remember what grandfather always knew. Some legacies are worth more than market value, and some lessons can only be learned through living them. 6 months later, the house had settled into a new rhythm. Mom's roses were blooming again. Dad had taken an interest in maintaining the historical features, and Kate was finally coming home. Her wedding had been postponed. Venue issues, she'd said vaguely. Though I suspected there was more to the story. She'd been visiting more frequently, spending quiet evenings in grandfather's library, reading his old journals. The day she officially moved back in, I found her in her room, unpacking. "The lease addendum is on your desk," I said from the doorway. "Already signed it." She paused, holding a framed photo, her and grandfather in the garden, when she was little. "You know, I found my old room at Todd's. Suffocating. Everything was new, perfect, soulless. Unlike your tacky childhood room." She smiled slightly. "Unlike my home." Downstairs, Mom was baking, something she hadn't done since before grandfather died. The smell of his favorite cookies filled the house. "Mrs. Peterson gave me the recipe," she explained. "Said it was time this kitchen remembered its purpose." Dad emerged from the basement office, carrying a dusty box. "Look what I found in the archives. The original house plans, and grandfather's notes for every renovation. Alex, I think you should have these." The box contained decades of history, sketches, permits, photographs, each modification documented with grandfather's meticulous attention to detail. "He kept everything," Kate marveled, joining us. "Every change, every decision." "Because every change had a purpose," I explained. "Each renovation made the house better, while preserving its character, just like family." Mom wiped her hands on her apron. "We almost lost this, all of this. If grandfather hadn't taught me," I corrected. "He knew what would happen, knew you'd see the house as an asset instead of a home." "We were wrong," Dad admitted. "About the house, about you, about everything." Kate touched the wall gently. "Remember when I drew on this wallpaper? Grandfather didn't get angry. He just said now it has a story to tell." "Everything here has a story," I said. "That's what makes it valuable." Later, sitting in the garden, with evening settling around us, the family gathered for the first time in months without tension. "The lease renewal is coming up," Mom mentioned casually. "Yes, it is. We've been thinking," Dad began. Maybe we could discuss a family trust, joint ownership, with you as primary trustee. Keep it in the family properly." I smiled. Grandfather's last journal entry was actually about that. He had it all planned out. Kate leaned forward. "What did it say?" "That when the family finally understood the true value of home, it would be time to share the legacy." Opening my briefcase, I pulled out the documents Mr. Harrison had prepared months ago. Grandfather's final gift, waiting for the right moment. "Welcome home," I said, passing them the papers. "Really home this time." Mom started crying. Dad studied the documents with suspiciously bright eyes. And Kate hugged me for the first time since this all began. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew we'd come back." "Grandfather knew," I corrected. "He just needed us all to understand why." That evening, as the family settled into familiar patterns, Mom in the kitchen, Dad in his favorite chair, Kate planning garden improvements, I added the final entry to grandfather's journal. "The house has taught its lessons. The family has found its way home. And the legacy continues. Stronger for having been tested. Just as you planned, grandfather. Just as you knew it would." Outside, Mrs. Peterson waved from her porch. The roses were blooming, the old walls stood strong, and inside, a family had remembered what home really means. Sometimes, the best investment returns are measured in memories, in understanding, in coming home.